Hi, I am Meeza Ubaid. I'm from Pakistan. I'm an architect and a cultural heritage consultant. Initially, I started working right after graduation with 𝙄𝙤𝙢𝙀𝙀. An NGO. It's a UNESCO accredited NGO in Pakistan. We're mostly working for safeguarding heritage, women empowerment, safeguarding, both tangible and intangible heritage of basically indigenous communities and minorities. Here, I've also joined MAHI. That's Maritime Archaeology Institute in Pakistan. They're mostly focused on documenting marine-based heritage and endangered maritime archaeology on the Indus Delta. My paper has been on the Kalasha in Pakistan, worldview, cultural heritage, and community resilience. Why I chose this? Because Kalasha community is basically the smallest religious minority in Pakistan. There are only 3,800 left in the world, actually, and they're just based in three valleys in the northern area of Pakistan. That's the Chitral district. So they're Bambara, Trambur, and Virid. The only problem with these people is they have a very rich heritage, and they have survived, and they have faced a number of problems like forceful conversions. Because they're a non-dominant community, they face several issues from the Muslims and other people around them. But they have thrived and they have survived, but they have a very distinct heritage and their religious practices. And the problem is that now the younger generation, and so most of them are just orally transmitted and they're not written down. And since it's not written, so there's a huge threat that they would be just lost. The younger generation sometimes is not really interested in learning a lot about them. So my chapter has all about when just to make create awareness, and so that everybody knows exactly who these people are and what they stand for. So in this, there has been, an introduction about the Kalasha, the valleys, who the people are. Then I've also explained very briefly, about their basically how their entire life is governed based on their gendered landscape. So women, because they menstruate, so they cannot access several spaces, in the valley, and men because they're they're not menstruating, so they're on just which is pure, so they can access the other spaces like the house of God and the temple. So that could be of course read in more details in the chapter. And then later on, I've also touched upon the economic structure, how these people are surviving, and how their social and cultural status is. They have beautiful festivals. However, coming towards the end, there are several issues that I have raised, along with their resilience, which are like their identity is under threat because of a couple of reasons. First, they have, they're facing hostilities and rivalries by the different Muslims around them. Secondly, tourism is not being regulated and controlled here. And because of the opening of the 𝙄𝙤𝙢𝙀𝙀 channel, now there are so many tourists. Valleys can have 1,100 tourists at one time, whereas on the festivals there are almost 2,200 to 3,000, which is almost double the capacity that they have. And then also because the younger generation has very little interest in really learning about their heritage, so this is under threat. So and while concluding, I've talked about that, of course, it's very difficult to research about any community, any indigenous community in the world. And the same thing was felt, experienced by me as well. But I feel that these people have remained true to their, heritage, their practices, and they believe that, they represent a community where men, women, children, they're at peace with their practices, and they feel a strong sense of pride in playing an integral part in sustenance of the Kalasha Desh. So the only thing is that they do need some support in protecting and safeguarding their heritage. And that's what I have been just a very small part, I've just played a very small part in it. But yeah. So I've touched upon a number of sustainable development goals. Firstly, I'll talk about number 8, decent work and economic growth, and how, because you see, it's always been felt, and since I've been in the valleys, that these people, of course, they own their religion, of course, they own their practices, their heritage, but there has to be a way how these people could take advantage of it as well. Like, a lot of tourists are coming here, a lot of people are interested in, viewing and experiencing this. But earlier we felt that, people from Chitral, maybe, who weren't part of this valley, they would become the tour guides, and they would just, take around, they would own the hotels or guest houses here. So there has been a lot of, capacity building done. And now locals are trained as tour guides. People have been encouraged to open guest houses, locals, so that they could earn a decent living. And how they could just, because women can make beautiful clothes, their headdresses, everything. So they could just represent them, and also portray. And so capacity building workshops have been done in order to make them aware how they could take advantage of this entire thing and use them for their benefit to earn, a good amount of good living, and also to bring economic development in the area. And along with that, of course, there has been another one which is very essential. It's like the fourth one, which is like quality education. Because I've like with HAP, we have been, like, after working on their intangible heritage, like community-based inventory, there was a project which was conducted with the help of UNESCO, where we went there and made sure that their curriculum, the Kalasha people, because they have a separate and distinctive curriculum. So what we did was we made sure that their heritage and their cultural practices were made part of their curriculum, so that the children can learn about them, read about them, and make sure that they get a quality education where they're learning about their heritage, maybe directly or indirectly, and also so that they can pass it on, and so that it's not lost. So this is how these two have been dealt with.